scar tissue in the fallopian tubes, blocked fallopian tubes, hydrosalpingitis. In this video today, we are going to talk about scar tissue in the fallopian tubes. We are going to answer questions in regards to blocked fallopian tubes, and without further ado, we are talking about scar tissue in the fallopian tubes. After this short break, don't leave, we are coming back and we are talking about Thank you, my friend, for staying around. We are talking about scar tissue. We are answering a question by one of our subscribers. She asked a question and she said, can you please talk about scar tissue in the fallopian tubes and how you can heal them to avoid ectopic pregnancy? I had one recently at 5 weeks and 6 days of pregnancy. So one of our subscribers asked a question and she was asking about scar tissue. She had one recently at 5 weeks and 6 days, meaning she had an ectopic pregnancy at 5 weeks and 6 days, and this ectopic pregnancy was due to scar tissue. First of all, before we answer this question, we shall say something briefly about scar tissue. When we are talking about the fallopian tubes, these are the two tubes which are in the reproductive system of a woman, and specifically these fallopian tubes are very important because they play a very big role in the transportation of the male sperm, and then also they transport the female egg. They transport a fertilized egg which actually goes up to your womb, and then it attaches onto the uterine wall, bringing about an embryo growing. We call this implantation. There are many times when a couple has had sexual intercourse, there's going to be fertilization taking place in the ampulla. This is a part of the fallopian tube where fertilization takes place. After fertilization has taken place, an egg is supposed to travel through the fallopian tubes up to the womb, whereby when it attaches onto the womb, it grows and then becomes a baby for a period of the next 40 weeks. So one of our subscribers, she asked a question that she actually would like us to talk about scar tissue. And without further ado, we are talking about scar tissue in the fallopian tubes. We've already said that ideally in normal settings, when an egg has been fertilized, it's supposed to travel through the tubes up to the uterine wall where it attaches, up to the womb, the walls of your womb, where it attaches and then it grows. But there are instances when the fallopian tubes are blocked. The blockage of the fallopian tubes is brought about by many things. We shall list these things below. Blockage of the fallopian tubes is normally brought about by infections. These infections are many, but we shall categorize them. There are infections which are known as sexually transmitted infections, for example, chlamydia and gonorrhea. There is also an infection known as a pelvic inflammatory disease, abbreviated as PID. Pelvic inflammatory disease is evidenced by free fluid in the pouch of Douglas. Now, when you are asking about the pouch of Douglas, specifically whenever you do a pelvic ultrasound scan, your doctor will tell you that there's some free fluid in the pouch of Douglas. It is that space which is between your womb and the rectum. That space between your womb and the rectum is what we call the pouch of Douglas. Ideally, it's supposed to be free from any fluid. So when fluid accumulates in that part, then it means there's actually an infection known as a PID. Gerard Massa, the health educator, is the name of the channel you are on. And I welcome you, my friend, for today's lesson. We are answering a question by one of our subscribers. She asked a question and she said, can you please talk about scar tissue in the tubes? And we have said that scar tissue is normally brought about by infections. It's brought about by previous operations on the fallopian tubes. If you've ever delivered a baby and then you delivered through cesarean section, maybe if at all there's some damage onto your tubes during the procedure in theater, it can later on bring about actually scar tissue to accumulate in your womb. And then also we talked about PID. We said that PID, or pelvic inflammatory disease, when it is poorly treated by drugs, then it actually may develop into a complication. When we talk about poor treatment of a PID, normally it may be that maybe a client or a woman has decided to do self-medication. We discourage self-medication because whenever you go to the pharmacy and then you request for drugs yourself, you request for some few antibiotics, you may actually be getting the treatment, the antibiotics, but you may actually be getting half dosages. You may be getting medication which is not really in the recommended dosages. So the best is always you should see your doctor, who will request for some tests to be done, and these tests include the urine culture and sensitivity. And then this urine and culture sensitivity test can give a complete picture of how your system is and which organisms are present, and then treatment can be given. Next cause of actually ectopic pregnancies is next cause of blocked fallopian tubes or scar tissue in the fallopian tubes is when you do have a past history of ectopic pregnancies. There are high chances that you can end up with blocked fallopian tubes due to scar tissue. And then we also said that scar tissue can be treated, but in this video today we've been talking about the causes of scar tissue in the fallopian tubes. We say that the first cause of scar tissue in the fallopian tubes is infections, like sexually transmitted infections due to chlamydia, due to other organisms like the trichomonas, and then also if at all you've been having urine tract infections which are poorly treated. Next cause of scar tissue, we said that when fluid accumulates into your tubes, we call this hydrosalpingitis. If at all you are having a history of hydrosalpingitis and you've not had this treated, then there are high chances that it can actually bring about scar tissue. But also blockage in the fallopian tubes can be due to adhesions and then also free fluid and then scar tissue. The goal is to identify which tube has been blocked by scar tissue, and this can be easily identified by doing a pelvic ultrasound scan and then also doing another test known as an HSG test. Abbreviated, the abbreviation is HSG, but in full we call it a hysterosalpingogram examination or a hysterosalpingogram scan. When you do this, it can show where the blockage is, because some contrast element or some contrast media will be introduced into your fallopian, into your private parts, and then it will travel up to your tubes, whereby whenever it meets a blockage, it will accumulate there, and then your radiologist or your doctor who has done the scan will point out which part is blocked. Remember, you can ask me all your questions in regards to fertility, ovulation, and pregnancy tips. Our goal with this channel, the goal of this channel is to create awareness about fertility. We are to create awareness about reproductive health. Gerard Massa, the health educator, is the name of the channel. If you are a couple out there and you have tried to get pregnant and things have not really worked out very well, remember, you can schedule a private consultation with me so that I'll give you more time, explain to you all the questions you've been having, why you have tried to get pregnant and things have not worked out. You can come to my website, Gerard Massa, the health educator, and you do your booking. I will talk to you, give you all the time, give you the best advice you can get out there. And one last bit, I did not talk about it, sorry, but remember, if you thank you for attending today's lesson. Remember to subscribe for new videos we release every day, and we release new videos every day at exactly 17 hours. Thank you for attending today's lesson. I hope you've learned something from today's lesson. Let me answer all your questions down below in the comments. Have yourself a fantastic and healthy day. Gerard Massa, the health educator, wishes you a very fantastic day. Bye-bye.